الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم كما قال عز شان كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه معاصي العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرقا وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وأروة وثقى فقد قال أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عظم الخالق في أنفسهم فصغر ما دونه في أعينهم صلوات بيجي محمد وآل محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Continuing with the discussion that we've been having for the past couple of months under this sermon of Nahjul Balagha, sermon number 193, known as Khutba al-Muttaqeen, where Amir al-Mu'mineen has been explaining, or in this khutbah, in the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the sifat and the attributes of Muttaqeen have been mentioned one after another. Last week we discussed this aspect, or this segment of the khutbah where Amir al-Mu'mineen counted by saying the greatness of the Creator is seated in the hearts of Muttaqeen, and so everything else appears small in their eyes. And we went into the commentary of this phenomena by sharing a few examples as to how when two brothers, even if they're twins, if they're raised in different environments, how the environment ends up affecting them, and therefore the love of Allah is the same way. If it's something which is enforced or instilled from the very beginning, it will definitely prevail in the hearts of those who grow up. But if the love of Allah is not exemplified in the lives of those who are responsible for the tarbiyat of awlad, or responsible for the upbringing of the children, likewise we will see the negative aspect of it, where the love of Allah will not be so dominant factor in these situations. And therefore pious and virtuous do not have any regard for the satisfaction of anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they find themselves in a position of judiciary or a teacher or any other area of expertise, all is in the way for seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where we see Amir al-Mu'mineen goes into further details, and he talks about how this world seemed to be worthless in the view of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the concept was that Muttaqeen also develop such habit that everything aside from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seems to be worthless, or seems like has no value. Anything that has to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or has association with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is given significance in their life, but anything that does not have to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looked upon or looked down upon, in other words. And so we see that Amir al-Mu'mineen at another place in khutbah number 3, sermon number 3, he says, "Behold, by him who split the grain to grow and created living things, living beings, if people had not come to me and supporters had not exhausted the argument, and if there had been no pledge of Allah Remember the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen, with the learned to the effect that they should not give the gluttony of the oppressor and the hunger of the oppressed, I would have cast the rope of caliphate on its own shoulders and would have given the last one the same treatment. That's the way I would have given the first one. Then you would realize, and then you would have seen that in my view, the world of yours is no better than the sneezing of a goat. This is how Imam is giving an analogy that what is the value of this world if it has nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this rulership or if this caliphate has nothing to do with the commands or implementing the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this rulership or this command that you want to give me or hand over. And if you remember, call back in the pages of history, how in the time of the fourth Khilafat, how people rushed towards the home of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Although Hassanain are old, they're probably in their 20s at that time, but we hear some of the commentators and the historians narrate that they rushed into the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and as if Hassanain were trampled over, they were walked over by the people because of such a large number of people. And Hassanain are not children at that time. So you imagine what kind of position that Amir al-Mu'mineen was at. But still at that point, he says, this has no value to me as long as it does not have the aspect of the rulership coming, the commands coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he says, Wallahi la dunyakum hadhihi ahwanu fi ayni min uraq khinzir fi yad majzoom. Allahu Akbar. Imam says, by God, the world in my eyes is more to be condemned than the meatless bone of a pig in the hands of a leper. It is less than a leaf in the mouth of a grasshopper. Look at the analogies that Imam is given as far as this world is concerned. And that is what he expects from the Muttaqeen as well. In this sifat that Imam is discussing in regards to Muttaqeen, because he is, as I said before, Imamul Muttaqeen. When he's the leader, Imam means the leader. He's the leader of Muttaqeen, and we consider him to be our leader. Then look at the sifat the Muttaqeen should develop. And therefore, from all this, we can understand the value of everything other than Allah in the sight of Imam. And all of this is because of the level of the ma'rifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he has. If insan is not careful about this particular issue, this particular mas'ala of having this love of Allah in his heart will be filled with ghayrullah, with someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There won't remain a place for the recognition of the Almighty. And if that happens, there won't be a place for Allah in that heart either. Heart which should be the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If other things take that place, angels won't enter this heart, let alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. But on the other side, the same insan would be able to sacrifice everything which is ghayrullah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept that we need to understand over here, what is ghayrullah and what is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anything, that's why when we talk about the concept of taqwa, the concept of taqwa is not for someone, and I repeat myself over and over, and I apologize for that, is not for someone who's in their 60s and 70s and 80s now. And we throw it off by saying, the child is young now. Don't bother him with the taqwa, or don't bother him with the sifat of taqwa. Or why are we discussing these sifat of taqwa? How is it going to go ahead and relate to the younger ones? Because, taqwa is for someone who's well in their 60s or 70s. They have lived their life. Now it's time for them to, pay attention towards this aspect. No. We are the followers of those ma'asumeen who were referred to as taqi while they were still in their, very young age. Our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad Taqi al-Jawad alayhi salatu wasalam, is only merely 8 or 9 years old when he is given the imamat, or when he assumes the responsibilities of an imam. And his title is what? Taqi. One of the titles that he's given is given Taqi. What does that mean? He's only 8 or 9 years old. What we want to understand from this aspect is that if we are the followers of these ma'asumeen, we need to look at that our ninth Imam is considered to be Taqi from the age of 9, from the age of 8. And therefore, muttaqeen or the taqwa should not be something which is left for the elderly or those who are well in their advanced age, now because they have time to serve the deen or to practice the religion giving more time to it. It's not about giving time to this religion. Rather, it is about the quality time that you give to this religion. And as far as taqwa is concerned, which is a duty of every individual, it should be kept in front of our eyes on every aspect of our life as well. When we speak to someone, we use this taqwa. When we talk, when we walk, we use this taqwa. Any aspect, when we go to work, we use this taqwa. When we're sitting on the table to eat food, we practice this taqwa. And examples of it adds up. Taqwa should be on every step of our life, every moment of our life. Salawat bhiji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad par. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam said, evidence of love is preference of beloved upon that which is ghairullah. So you give everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Examples of such can be found in the lives of prophets and imams, especially the life of Imam Hussein, the journey that continues, and we are walking into the days of the Arba'een of Imam Hussein. And also we see in the lives of others as well, and not just Ma'asumeen. We see in the lives of the wife of Fir'aun, even Asiya, her marriage to Fir'aun didn't harm her, nor did it decrease her nearness and the place near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After seeing the miracle from Hazrat Musa alayhi wasalam, she brought Iman and remained steadfast against the threats of Fir'aun. Just imagine the power of Pharaoh and Hazrat Asiya remaining steadfast on the path that she had chosen. In fact, she requested Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what? For a house near him. She said, إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِي لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. O Allah, construct a house for me, a bayt for me, near yourself or near your greatness in the Jannat as well. This is where Amir al-Mu'mineen moves on to, since we are on the topic of Jannah, moves on to the next element or the next segment of the sifat of Muttaqeen, where he says, وَالْجَنَّةُ كمن قد رآها فهم فيها منعمون وهم والنار كمن قد رآها فهم فيها معذبون. He said, thus to them paradise is as though they see it and are enjoying its favors. To them hell is also as if they see it and the suffering and the punishment of it as well. So we see muttaqeen that Imam is trying to construct over here, and the construct would be a better word because we still have a long way to go towards becoming muttaqeen. The construction of this muttaqeen that Imam wants to give us the formula to become that muttaqeen. Imam says muttaqeen are those, pious are those that they see the paradise right here. They see the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the paradise, and at the same time they also see the hell and all the things that go on along in this hell. That's why you back up this concept from the verse of Surah Takathur, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about la tarawunnal jahim, that they will indeed see the jahim, they will indeed see the hell. Who do they say? Who is he talking about? He's talking about people seeing jahim in this part of the world, not after their death, because everybody will be able to witness jahim after the death. They will be able to see, kuffar or mu'mineen, muslimin, all alike would be able to witness the hell after their death in the day of judgment. But what is important is to be able to witness it within this life, right now while you're enjoying, or right now when you're spending this life, when you can see the jahim right here, when Quran said, وَلَتَرَوُنَّ الْجَحِيمِ, then they will understand the real aspect of it. And Imam Ali is saying the same exact thing in this part of the khutbah. Imam is pointing towards the insight of muttaqeen and the pious, and the root of this insight can be found in the level of their yaqeen on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The three levels of yaqeen that are normally discussed are ilmul yaqeen, ainul yaqeen, and haqqul yaqeen. A different aspect that Imam is giving, usually the aspect that we hear from or we read in the Quran, but similar to that, and an aspect that Imam is given, he says, ilmul yaqeen is logical. Ainul yaqeen is the certainty of the vision. Haqqul yaqeen is the certainty of the truth. Likewise, ilmul yaqeen is reading or studying something. Ainul yaqeen is the spiritual vision. Haqqul yaqeen is the mystical observation. He says ilmul yaqeen comes from hearing. Ainul yaqeen comes from a spiritual inspiration, which is ilham. And haqqul yaqeen comes from witnessing. because it has ayn in there, or it comes from the ayan or haqq, which you see it through your eyes. The examples that usually are given is the fire and the smoke coming from it. You see the smoke, it's ilmul yaqeen, and then you go towards it, you witness it, you see it with your own eyes, it becomes aynul yaqeen. And if you were to go ahead and place your hand in there, and if the hand burns obviously from it, don't go ahead and do that, you will get to what is known as haqqul yaqeen. But here Imam is giving a little bit, slightly different explanation of it. It is simple that ilmul yaqeen is a logical proof through the prior reasoning, which is known as in the philosophy burhan inni wa burhan limmi. The example of a smoke that you reach from effect to the cause, or sometimes from the cause to the effect. Basically, this is what the burhan is. So inshallah we will discuss more in regards to this burhan, or this concept that Imam is given, just to end with it. When Thi'lab Yamani asked Amirul Mu'mineen, Hal ra'ayta rabbaka? Have you seen your Lord? What was the reply that Imam gave? He said, Lam a'bud rabban lam ara. I do not worship the Lord or the Rabb that I have not seen. Here Imam is answering this not through the eyesight that he's talking about, rather through the insight that he's able to witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, Ma ra'aytu shay'an illa wa ra'aytu Allah qalbahu wa qablahu wa ba'dahu wa ma'ahu. He said, I haven't seen anything. This is where the taqwa comes in on every step of our life, every second, every moment, every step that we take. He says, I haven't seen anything except I see Allah before it, I see Allah after it, and I see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with it. In other words, before seeing anything, I see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 3 times. Let's keep this thought in our minds, that whenever we embark on doing something, at least we witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on 3 areas: before it, while we're in it, or after it, as Imam Ali ﷺ is mentioning, so that whenever we embark on doing something, we keep Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this perspective. Inna ahsan al-hadith wa ablagh al-mu'idha kitab Allah a'udhu billahi min ash-shaytan ar-rajim bismillah ar-rahman ar-rahim wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu s-salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr.